Today I will discuss the different accounting concepts and principles. These are our learning objectives. Give examples of accounting concepts and principles. Apply the concepts in solving accounting problems. So what are these accounting concepts and principles? These are also called assumptions or postulates. These are set of logical ideas and procedures that guide the accountant in recording and communicating economic information. They provide a general frame of reference by which accounting practice can be evaluated, and they serve as guide in the development of new practices and procedures. Accounting concepts and principles provide reasonable assurance that information communicated to users is prepared in a proper way. For example, doctors have a proper way of performing surgery on a patient. Engineers have a proper way of constructing a bridge. Accountants, too, have a proper way of recording and communicating economic information. This is to maximize the usefulness of accounting information to the users. So there are numerous concepts and principles used in accounting. These are sourced from the standards, which is also called Philippine Financial Reporting Standards, the conceptual framework for financial reporting, or general acceptance in the profession due to long-time use. Accounting is constantly changing and new concepts are continuously emerging. It is therefore not applicable to list all the concepts and principles used in accounting. Only some of the basic and most common accounting concepts and principles are listed in the slideshow. So one is separate entity concept, historical cost concept, going concern assumption, matching, accrual basis, prudence or conservatism, time period, stable monetary unit, materiality concept, cost benefit, full disclosure principle, and consistency concept. So let's discuss it one by one. So first is the separate entity concept. So under this concept, the business is viewed as a separate person, distinct from its owner or owners. Only the transactions of the business are recorded in the books of accounts. So the personal transactions of the business owners are not recorded. For example, you started a business. Under the separate entity concept, you will view your business as a separate person, like a friend maybe. Therefore, the money you invested to the business is now owned by the business. Hindi mo na siya personal money kasi na-invest mo na siya sa business. It's not your personal money anymore. Also, the business owns any money that it earns. So, kung pera ni business, pera ni business. Kung personal money mo, personal money mo. If you take money from the business for your personal use, it would be recorded in the books of accounts as a withdrawal of your investment from the business. Similarly, when you take goods from the business for your personal consumption, with which you don't intend to pay, this would also be recorded as a withdrawal for your investment. So your personal transactions, examples are those that do not involve your business, are not recorded in the books of accounts. For example, using your personal money to buy groceries for home consumption is not recorded in the books of accounts. Kung bumili ka ng groceries gamit naman yung sarili mong pera, hindi mo na siya kailangang i-record sa books of accounts. Pero kapag kumuha ka sa pera ng business para sa personal consumption mo, kailangan mo siyang i-record sa business kasi ginalaw mo yung pera ng business. So, yun yung separate entity concept. For example, may tindahan ka, kumuha ka dun ng food. Dapat i-record mo yun sa books of accounts na kumuha ka ng food. So, ganun siya. Ganun yung separate entity concept. The application of the separate entity concept is necessary so that the financial position and financial performance of a business can be measured properly. By applying the separate entity concept, you can objectively know if the business is really earning profits or if it has the ability to do so. Kasi kung, for example, yung kanina, kumuha ka ng food pero hindi mo ni-record sa business, sa books ng business, hindi 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 na objective yung records ng business. Hindi mo na sure kung kumikita ba talaga siya or nalulugi lang ba siya kasi kumukuha ka ng paninda mo. So, ganun yung concept ng separate entity. Many business have failed because they did not apply the separate entity concept. For example, an owner of a sari-sari store who regards the store's cash register as an extension of his pocket. Kuha ng kuha sa kaha ng tindahan. So he takes money from the business for personal use and consumes the store's goods without recording them. The business then suffers from lack of working capital. Siyempre, pag kuha ka ng kuha, walang mapapaikot na pera. So, mauubos yung pera ng business. It runs out of goods to sell without any money to replenish them. Eventually, the business becomes bankrupt. Unknowingly, this guy has caused his own business to fail. So if this guy had applied the separate entity concept, he would have had better accounting information that could have led him to make better business decisions. So yun yung importance ng separate entity concept. Pwede namang kumuha, pero dapat i-record mo siya. It's as if utang mo siya sa business or bawas siya sa capital mo sa business. So, yun yung separate entity concept. Another one is the historical cost concept or it is also called cost principle. So, under this concept, assets are initially recorded at their acquisition cost. Ano ibig sabihin ng acquisition cost? Ito yung cost nung in-acquire mo siya, magkano mo siya binili. So, for example, bumili ka ng computer ng laptop worth 15,000 nung time na yon. Under historical cost concept, kailangan mo siyang ma-record sa book sa amount kung magkano mo siya binili. Gaya ng 15,000 pesos. Kung 15,000 mo siya binili, dapat 15,000 mo din siya i-record sa books. So, yun yung historical cost concept. Another one is the going concern assumption. So under this concept, the business is assumed to continue to exist for an indefinite period of time. This is necessary for accounting measurements to be meaningful. For example, measuring assets at historical costs is appropriate only when the business is a going concern. Ibig sabihin, yung mga assets mo, i-measure mo siya kung magkano mo talaga siya binili. Yun yung going concern assumption. Pag going concern kasi, hindi mo nakikitang mag-close yung business mo in the future. Kasi once na mag-close na siya, ang tawag naman dun kasi is liquidating concern. Opposite yun ng going concern. This is the case, yung liquidating concern, this is the case if the business intends to end its operation or if it has no other choice but to do so. Example, the business is already bankrupt. So, hindi na siya going concern assumption. Liquidating concern na siya. At pag liquidating concern na siya, yung assets mo, it is measured at net selling price rather than at historical cost. So, yun yung difference. Kaya kapag may business ka, it's as if indefinite period pa yung existence niya. Kaya i-measure mo yung assets mo at historical cost or at acquisition cost. Pag liquidating concern na kasi siya, i-measure mo na siya at net selling price kung magkano mo siya pwedeng ibenta, yung assets mo. So, yun. So, going concern is good. Liquidating concern is not so good kasi yun na yung mag-e-end na yung operation mo. So, that's going concern assumption. Next is matching or it's the association of cause and effect. Under this concept, Some costs are initially recognized as assets and charged as expense only when the related revenue is recognized. So, i-record mo muna siya as asset at eventually, i-record mo din siya as expense kapag na-record mo na yung kabangga niyang revenue. For example, meron kang binili na yung mga inventory. So, yung mga inventory mong yon, i-record mo muna siya as asset kasi hindi mo pa naman siya nabibenta. Pero eventually, pag nabenta mo na yung inventory na yon, may mare-record kang revenue dahil nga nabenta mo na siya. Pero at the same time, yung unang asset na na-record mo, kailangan mo na rin siyang i-record as expense kasi may kabangga na siyang revenue pag nabenta mo na siya. So, yun yung matching principle. Another one is the accrual basis of accounting. Under the accrual basis of accounting, economic events are recorded in the period in which they occur rather than at the point in time when they affect cash. Thus, income is recognized in the period when it is earned rather than when it is collected, while expense is recognized in the period when it is incurred rather than when it is paid. Sa accounting kasi, hindi kasi siya cash basis. Pag sinabing cash basis, i-record mo lang siya pag natanggap mo yung pera or kapag naglabas ka ng pera. So, yun yung cash basis. Ang accounting, it is accrual basis. Ibig sabihin, regardless kung natanggap mo yung pera or hindi pa, kailangan mo na siyang i-record sa books. So, sa accrual basis of accounting, i-recognize mo na yung income basta na-earn mo na siya kahit hindi mo pa siya nakokolekta. At yung expense naman, i-recognize mo na siya basta na-incur mo na siya kahit hindi mo pa siya nababayaran. Or for example, sa expense, pagdating ng December, nag-incur or nakagamit ka ng kuryente. So, yung paggamit mo ng kuryente, kailan ba dadating yung bill mo? Bill ng kuryente. Ang dating ng bill ng kuryente mo ay the following month pa, which is January of the following year. E paano yun? January of the following year mo pa rin siya mababayaran. Kailangan mo na ba siyang i-record sa libro mo ng December? Or hindi pa? So, many of you may answer na hindi pa kasi January ko pa naman siya mababayaran. January pa kasi siya due. Pero sa point of view ni accounting, December nagamit mo na siya. So, dapat or na-incur mo na siya. Pag sa accounting kasi, ginagamit nila yung term na incur. So, nung December pa lang, na-incur mo na siya, kaya dapat i-record mo na siya sa libro mo as expense. Kahit na hindi ka pa naglalabas ng pera para bayaran siya. So, yun yung accrual basis. Paano naman sa income? So, sa pagdating naman sa revenue, kapag may nabenta ka, hindi pa nababayaran ng customer mo utang. So, kahit hindi pa niya nababayaran, pero nabigay mo na yung item, na-earn mo na yung income mo, kahit hindi mo pa nakokolekta, i-record mo na siya sa libro mo kasi naglabas ka na ng inventory mo. So, ang principle na yon ay accrual basis. I-record mo na siya kahit hindi mo pa natatanggap yung pera or kahit hindi ka pa nagbabayad ng expenses mo. Yun yung accrual basis of accounting. Another concept is prudence or conservatism. So under this concept, the accountant observes some degree of caution when exercising judgments needed in making accounting estimates under conditions of uncertainty, such that if the accountant needs to choose between a potentially unfavorable outcome, versus a potentially favorable outcome, the accountant chooses the unfavorable one. This is necessary so that assets or income are not overstated or hindi siya masosobrahan, and liabilities or expenses are not understated. So, hindi masyadong magiging malaki yung asset or income mo, hindi rin naman masyadong maliit yung liabilities or expenses mo. Kasi kung mag-estimate ka, kumbaga, yung unfavorable ang pipiliin mo kaysa yung favorable. Parang kapag nag-estimate ka ng magagastos mo, dapat naka-maximum na siya. Hindi yung minimum na pwede mong magastos. So, ima-maximum mo na siya. So, yun yung prudence or conservatism. Another concept is the time period. So, under this concept, the life of the business is divided into series of reporting periods. So, kapag may business ka, kailan mo ba gustong malaman kung magkano ang profit mo? Gusto mo bang malaman siya pag magsasara ka na? Or gusto mong malaman yung profit mo sa mga reporting periods? For example, instead of waiting until the life of the business ends before profit is determined, the life of the business is divided into series of equal short periods. So this is called reporting period or accounting period. A reporting period is usually 12 months or 1 year, although it can be longer or shorter. A 12-month accounting period is either a calendar year or a fiscal year period. So may dalawang klase, calendar year period or a fiscal year period. Ano ba yung calendar year period? It starts on January 1 and ends on December 31 of the same year. So yun yung calendar period. Basta tatakbo siya ng 12 months. Ibig sabihin, lahat ng transactions mo within that month, i-summarize mo siya para malaman mo kung magkano yung naging profit mo for the year. A fiscal year period also covers 12 months. So, ito na yung pangalawa, fiscal year period. It also covers 12 months, but it starts on a date other than January 1. Example, July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021. So, 12 months pa din siya, pero hindi siya nag-start at nag-end sa January at December. So, other month siya nag-start, pero 12 months pa din ang cover niya. So, an accounting period naman that is shorter than 12 months, ang tawag naman dito ay interim period. An interim period can be a month, a quarter, or a semi-annual period. For example, sabi, ang reporting period mo ay semi-annual lang, January to June. So, interim period ang tawag doon. Or quarter lang, first quarter of the year, January, February, and March. So, less than 12 months siya. Interim period pa rin ang tawag doon. So, ulit, calendar period starts on January 1 and ends on December 31. Fiscal year period, it starts on any month of the year na matatapos din after 12 months. So, pwedeng July to June the following year. Ang interim period naman is shorter than 12 months. So, yun yung different time period or reporting period. Pag sinabing, kailangan kong makita yung profit ko for the year, so yun na yung reporting period niya. Hindi mo na kailangang antayin na magsara yung business para malaman mo kung magkano ang naging profit mo since nag-start yung operations mo. So yun yung time period. Next is stable monetary unit. So under this concept, assets, liabilities, equity, income, and expenses are stated in terms of a common unit of measure. So, ano ba ang common unit of measure dito sa Philippines? So, it's the peso in the Philippines. Moreover, the purchasing power of the peso is regarded as stable. Therefore, changes in the purchasing power of the peso due to inflation are ignored. So, yun yung stable monetary unit natin, Philippine peso. Another concept is the materiality concept. This concept guides the accountant when applying accounting principles. This is because accounting principles are applicable only to material items. Ano ba yung material items? An item is considered material if its omission or misstatement could influence economic decisions. So materiality is a matter of professional judgment and is based on the size and nature of an item being judged. Wala naman kasing rule sa accounting na kapag 5,000, above 5,000, material na siya. So walang ganon. So kaya tinatawag siyang based sa professional judgment mo. For example, material items are communicated to users in a more detailed manner as compared to immaterial items. Another example is that big companies often round off amounts in their financial reports. Kapag malalaking company, nire-round nila yung monetary amounts sa financial reports. So, an accountant with a balance of, for example, 323,487,679,621 may be reported as 323,488 na lang with an indication of the level of rounding off. Meaning, para na siyang nagiging 100,000s na lang dun sa financial report. Since the company is big, yung size ng money is considered yung 100,000s, yung 679,621, considered immaterial na siya pag ni-round nila yung nasa financial reports kasi billions na yung monetary amounts. You may also think of materiality this way. Mas simple. You go to a store to buy some stuff worth 99.9, which you pay using a 100 peso bill. The cashier tells you that she has no 0.10 to give you as change. Parang sa Save More, ay wala po kaming 0.10. Magagalit ka ba na walang panukling 0.10 sa'yo? So most likely, you will just smile and tell her to keep the change. 0.10 lang naman. So this is because 0.10 is most likely to be immaterial to you. It should also be noted, though, that rounding off of amounts is acceptable only when preparing financial reports. Hindi niya i-omit. Hindi niya tatanggalin, hindi niya ibubulsa yung 100,000 na tinanggal natin kanina. So for purposes of presentation lang niya i-round off yun. Pero hindi naman niya ibubulsa sa pag-record ng books. So, accounting principles do not specify a certain amount that is considered material. This is a matter of professional judgment and depends on the facts and circumstances surrounding the entity. So, for example, what is material to you might be immaterial to others and vice versa. Malay mo yung example na 0.10, possible na i-keep the change mo siya, pero baka sa ibang tao, hindi niya yun i-keep the change kasi material sa kanya yung 0.10. So, yun yung materiality concept. Another concept is cost-benefit or cost constraint. Under this concept, the costs of processing and communicating information should not exceed the benefits to be derived from the information's use. So, kung may i-avail yung company, for example, na services, for example lang, syempre, dapat yung benefit na makukuha nung company dun sa taong magbibigay sa kanila ng service is mas malaki kaysa sa ibabayad nila sa tao. So, cost-benefit, mas malaki yung magiging benefit kaysa yung cost. So, yun yung cost-benefit. Another principle is the full disclosure principle. So, this concept is related to both the concepts of materiality and cost concept. Under the full disclosure principle, information communicated to users reflect a series of judgmental trade-offs that strive for like sufficient detail to disclose matters that makes a difference to users, yet sufficient condensation to make the information understandable, keeping in mind the costs of preparing and using it. So, dapat lahat na disclose. Another concept is the consistency concept. This concept requires a business to apply accounting policies consistently and present information consistently from one period to another. This means that like transactions must be accounted for in like manner. So, the same lang, hindi pwedeng may binili kang computer ngayon, may binili kang computer ngayon, i-expense mo ngayon, next month may binila ka ulit, i-asset mo. So, hindi dapat. Dapat asset siya. So, ang tamang presentation nun asset. So, dapat lahat ng bibilin mong computer, asset siya pag ni-record mo. So, accounting principles used this year shall be the same accounting policies used last year. Kung anong policy mo this year, yun din yung policy mo dapat last year at next year. This, however, does not mean that a business cannot change its accounting policies. Accounting policies can be changed if it is required by a standard or the change would result in more relevant and more reliable information. Any change in accounting policy must be disclosed. So yan. So let's try. For example, during the year, you started a business of selling personalized mugs and t-shirts. Example lang to. You opened a separate bank account for the business and deposited your initial investment of 250,000 of this account. Ano kayang concept to? Check na natin yung mga different concepts. So, yan yung mga pagpipilian mo. Ulit. Nag-start ka ng business. You opened a separate bank account for the business and deposited your initial investment. So, anong concept yun? So, ang concept na yan ay separate entity concept. Okay, next. The business acquired a printing machine. The regular selling price is 100,000. However, you were able to acquire it at a discounted price of 90,000. So you will record the machine at its acquisition cost of 90,000 rather than at the regular selling price. Anong concept ang gagamitin mo? Ni-record mo siya kung magkano mo siya binili. So it's historical cost concept. Next, the business acquired initial inventory of mugs and t-shirts for a total cost of 50,000. So you will record the cost as an asset. Ilalagay mo muna siyang inventory rather than as expense. Anong concept yun? Tama! Matching concept. Another one. All the inventory was sold on credit. Pag sinabing credit, utang. So, nabenta mo siya pero utang siya. Pinautang mo. All inventory was sold on credit for 300,000. You will immediately record the credit sales as accounts receivable, means nilista mo muna siya, rather than waiting for them to be collected. So, ni-record mo na siya kahit pautang lang, kahit hindi mo pa nakolekta. So, anong concept yun? Accrual basis. Also, you will now record the 50,000 cost of the inventory as expense. Kanina, ginawa mo siyang asset. Kasi binili mo siya as inventory. Ngayon, dahil nabenta mo na siya, i-record mo na siya as expense. Ano nga ulit na concept yun? Matching concept. Okay. Another one. You collected 290,000 out of the 300,000 total credit sales. So you will deposit the collections to the bank account of the business rather than to your personal account. Siyempre, benta yun ng business mo. Bakit mo siya i-record ay i-deposit sa personal account mo? So, anong concept yun? Separate entity concept. Next, the debtor, for the remaining 10,000, kanina nagpautang ka ng 300,000. Ngayon, may umutang sa'yo na debtor. The remaining 10,000 is in financial difficulty. So, yung debtor, ibig sabihin nun yung taong umutang. This has raised doubt on whether he can pay his account. You will immediately recognize the doubtful account as expense. So, anong basis to? Anong concept? Ito yung prudence or conservatism. Kasi, hindi mo naman sure kung babayaran or hindi. Pero dahil sabi kanina sa prudence, kung ano yung unfavorable, yun yung magiging action mo. So, siya yung prudence or conservatism concept. Another one, you withdrew cash of 80,000 from the business for your personal use. You will record this transaction as withdrawal of your investment from the business rather than a business expense kasi nga for personal use mo siya kinuha sa business. So anong concept to? Separate entity concept. Next, at the end of the year, you prepared the financial statements of your business to determine, among others, whether the business has earned profit. So, at the end of the year, gumawa ka ng financial statements para malaman mo kung magkano ang profit mo. Anong concept to? Time period. Next, when preparing the financial statements, you discovered that the business has $10. So, dollars siya. You will translate this to Philippine peso using the current exchange rate. Kung magkano ang rate ng dollar to peso ngayon. The amount that you will report in the financial statement is translated amount. Anong concept yun? Stable monetary unit. Kasi hindi naman pwedeng sa financial statements mo, halo-halo, may dollar, may peso, paano may itototal yun? So, dapat lahat ng dollar or any other foreign exchange, i-translate mo muna sa Philippine peso. Okay, next. Also, you have found out that the regular selling price of a new printing machine increased from 100,000 to 120,000. You will ignore this information and report the printing machine at its acquisition cost of 90,000 in the financial statements. Anong concept to? Historical cost. This is because you don't intend or expect to close your business in the foreseeable time. So, anong concept yung hindi mo nakikitang mag-close yung business mo? Going concern. During the year, the business bought a trash bin for 80 pesos. 80 pesos yung trash bin. You expect to use this over several years. Siyempre, matagal gamitin ang trash bin. However, because you deemed the cost as immaterial, you will record this as an expense rather than an asset. Anong concept? Materiality concept. Moreover, when you prepared the financial statements, you decided to include the cost of the trash bin in a miscellaneous expense account, together with other immaterial expense. You don't expect users of the financial statements to benefit from reporting the immaterial cost separately. So, this concept is cost-benefit. Next, you will make a brief description of the miscellaneous expense account in the notes to financial statements, sufficient for users to understand the nature of this account. So, magdi-disclose ka kung ano yung mga nakalagay sa miscellaneous expense na account. So, this concept is full disclosure. Next, You then adopted an accounting policy of expensing outright all acquisitions of equipment costing 5,000 and below. So, lahat ng bibilhin mong equipment na worth 5,000 below is i-expense mo. Yun yung policy mo. You will apply this policy consistently in the future periods. So, ganun siya every year. Basta 5,000 and below, expense. Anong concept yun? So, consistency concept. Okay, so na-discuss na natin yung mga different accounting concepts. So, moving forward. So, these accounting concepts and principles are either explicit or implicit. So, explicit concepts and principles are those that are specifically mentioned in the conceptual framework for financial reporting and in the Philippine Financial Reporting Standards. So, nakalagay talaga siya pag sinabing explicit. Pag implicit naman, implicit concepts, explicit and implicit ha. Implicit concepts and principles are those that are not specifically mentioned in the foregoing but are customarily used because of their general and long-term acceptance within the accountancy profession. So, yung term na concepts, principles, standards, assumptions, and postulates are used interchangeably in practice. However, the term standards is used to specifically refer to the Philippine Financial Reporting Standards. Traditionally, accounting standards were referred to as the Generally Accepted Accounting Principles or GAAP. GAAP. So, yun. So, the PFRS or the Philippine Financial Reporting Standards and interpretations adopted by the Financial Reporting Standards Council or FRSC. They consist of the following: Philippine Financial Reporting Standards or PFRS, Philippine Accounting Standards or PAS, and interpretations. So just like the basic accounting concepts, the standards serve as guide when recording and communicating accounting information. The difference is that the standards provide a more detailed application of concepts. They also prescribe which principle is most appropriate for specific economic transactions. They also require certain information that should be included in financial reports and how this information is presented. You may think of the difference between basic concepts and standards this way. So, a basic concept would be like, you need to brush your teeth daily. Yun yung basic concept. On the other hand, a standard would prescribe a proper way of brushing your teeth. How many times should you brush in a day? And it may even suggest a certain toothbrush that is best for you. So, yun yung concepts and standards. The PFRS are issued by the Financial Reporting Standards Council or FRSC, which is the official accounting standard setting body in the Philippines. The PFRS are patterned from the International Financial Reporting Standards or IFRS, which are issued by the International Accounting Standards Board or IASB. This means that the accounting standards used here in the Philippines are similar to those used in other countries worldwide. But why do we need to have uniform accounting standards? Well, this is because for financial statements to be useful, they must be prepared using reporting standards that are generally acceptable. Otherwise, each business would have to develop its own standards. If that's the case, every business may just present any asset or income it wants and omit any liability or expense it does not want to present. Financial statements would not be comparable. The risk of fraudulent reporting is heightened. and economic decisions based on these financial statements would be grossly incorrect. So for this reason, entities should follow a uniform set of reporting standards when preparing and presenting financial statements. So imagine a basketball game with no rules, so ang gulo. The players would be like a bunch of monkeys jumping and running around. Or a society with no laws, everything would be in chaos. So yung sinabi kanina, the term generally acceptable means that either the standard has been established by an authoritative accounting standard setting body or the principles has gained general acceptance due to practice over time and has been proven to be most useful. So the process of establishing accounting standards is a democratic process in that a majority of practicing accountants worldwide must agree with the standard before it becomes implemented. So what are the different relevant regulatory bodies? So bukod kay Financial Reporting Standard Council, so the following also affect the accounting policies used by businesses in their financial reporting. First, Securities and Exchange Commission or SEC. The SEC is tasked with regulating corporations, including partnerships. The SEC requires corporations and partnerships to file audited financial statements. So another one, Bureau of Internal Revenue. The BIR is tasked in collecting national taxes and administering the provisions of tax code. Although the provisions of the tax code do not always reflect the goals of financial reporting, they do at times influence the choice of accounting methods and procedures. So next is the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or BSP. The BSP is tasked in regulating banks and other entities performing banking functions. So the BSP influences the selection and application of accounting policies by these businesses. Lastly, the Cooperative Development Authority or the CDA. The CDA is tasked in regulating cooperatives. The CDA influences the selection and application of accounting policies by cooperatives. So just like the standards, the conceptual framework for financial reporting also prescribes accounting concepts that are relevant to the preparation of financial statements. However, the conceptual framework is not a standard. Rather, the conceptual framework serves as a general frame of reference in developing or applying the standards. So, among the concepts stated in the conceptual framework are the qualitative characteristics of useful financial information. So, qualitative characteristics are the traits that determine whether an item of information is useful to users. Without these characteristics, information may be deemed useless. For example, you need new shoes, so you go to a store to buy a pair. If you get to the store, you don't just buy the first pair you see. You look around and try some until you find the pair that you prefer. Your preference is affected by the qualitative characteristics of the shoes. Example, how well it fits on your foot, its design, its durability, its suitableness for your intended purpose, etc. So these qualities make the shoes useful to you. If the shoes don't fit you well, then they are useless. If you buy low-quality shoes that get destroyed within a month of use, then they are again useless. Similarly with accounting information, the information must have certain qualitative characteristics so that it can be deemed useful to users. So the qualitative characteristics are broadly classified into two, namely fundamental qualitative characteristics and enhancing qualitative characteristics. So fundamental qualitative characteristics are characteristics that make information useful to users. They consist of the following: relevance and faithful presentation. So sa relevance, ano ba yung relevance? Information is relevant if it can affect the decisions of users. Without this trait, information is deemed irrelevant. So, importante. Relevant information has the following aspects: predictive value, confirmatory value, and materiality. Pag sinabing predictive value, information has a predictive value if it can help users to make predictions about future outcomes. Pag confirmatory value naman, or tinatawag na feedback value, this concept is related to the predictive value. Information has a confirmatory value if it can help users confirm their past predictions. And lastly, materiality. Materiality is an entity-specific aspect of relevance, meaning it depends on the facts and circumstances surrounding a specific entity. For example, an item may be considered by one business as material, but is considered by another as immaterial. So information is material if omitting it or misstating it could influence the decisions of users. So those are the relevance characteristics. Another one is the faithful representation. So information is faithful or faithfully represented if it is factual, meaning it can represent the actual effects of events that have taken place. For example, if a business makes total sales of 1 million pesos, it should report that amount in its financial statements. No more, no less. So faithfully represented information has the following aspects. So completeness, all information necessary for users to have a complete understanding of the financial statement is provided. Neutrality, information is selected or presented without bias. Information is not manipulated to increase its favorability or decrease its unfavorability. And it's free from error. Free from error means the information is not materially misstated. This does not mean, however, that accounting information must be perfectly accurate in all respects, because some accounting information necessarily needs to be estimated. So free from error means there are no errors in the description and in the process by which the information is selected and applied. So another qualitative characteristics, enhancing qualitative characteristics. So there are 4. First is comparability. Information is comparable if it can help users identify similarities and differences between different sets of information. Unlike the other qualitative characteristics, comparability does not relate to only one item because a comparison requires at least 2 items. Comparability, so may kino-compare ka. Next is verifiability. Information is verifiable if different users could reach a general agreement as to what the information intends to represent. For example, I say red, you say green. So not verifiable. Dapat I say red, you say red. So verifiable. Another one is the timeliness. Information is timely if it is available to users in time to be able to influence their decisions. This is like the saying, aanhin pang damo kung patayin ang kabayo, or too late the hero. Last is understandability. So information is understandable if it is presented in a clear and concise manner. On the other hand, Users are expected to have a reasonable knowledge of business activities and a willingness to analyze the information diligently. So, yun yung enhancing qualitative characteristics. So, additional, ano yung difference nung fundamental at enhancing? Pag sinabing fundamental, these are the characteristics that make information useful to users. Pag enhancing, characteristics that enhance the usefulness of information. So, nabanggit ko na to kanina. So, relevance. So, information is relevant if it can affect the decisions of users. So, meron dalawang value, predictive value and confirmatory value. Predictive value, the information can be used in making predictions. Confirmatory value, the information can be used in confirming past predictions. So, materiality is an entity-specific aspect of relevance. So, nabanggit ko na rin to kanina, yung faithful representation and yung enhancing qualitative characteristics. So, yan yung Chapter 2, the different accounting concepts and principles. So, for any questions, reactions, you may chat the group in Microsoft Teams. So, yun lang for today. Thanks.